Let's welcome Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph is Principal Chief Sustainability Officer of Urban A&O Inc. USA, and he will be talking on decoding sustainability impacts of organic data center. Joe MacDonald founded Urban A&O in New York while serving as an associate professor in Department of Architecture at Harvard University Graduate School of Design, his alma mater, and now serves as one of the principals. His UANO project director and incorporating his academic research into practice, and his work has been published and exhibited widely. His practice emphasizes net zero, carbon neutral design research, renewable energy, climate mitigation, public policy, 4IR, emerging sustainable material science applications, environmental analysis, and building profits wherever possible. UNAO is focused on transparent, quantified, measurable results and science-based targets. Welcome, Mr. Joseph.
Thank you very much for the warm welcome, and also thank you for the bio. That was great. So I'm going to present a case study of ours called the Helsinki Hybrid. Before that, I just want to recognize Susan at Prologis. It's well known around the world that Prologis is one of the leading industry examples of their efforts to go to net zero. This is common knowledge around the world. So Prologis is really a company to watch. Let me share my screen. I'm going to move very quickly through this deck. It's very text heavy. And so I will not be reading the text, but I'll just simply describe the project. And then also I'll drop the design deck into the WhatsApp group should you be interested in reading further about the project. Urban A&O is an international firm. We've been around since 2004. I run it from the Americas, yet we're staffed worldwide. And it's a boutique firm. It's a firm made up of young designers, and we are our core competencies are carbon neutral data centers, eco resorts, smart cities, vertical farming, green roofs, plant walls. So we made a commitment to go carbon neutral in 2017. The data center that I'm going to show you, we cannot get data centers to net zero because they're so hot inside, but we can get them to carbon neutral. And we also are known for facade engineering, where we do get to net zero on the facades through a variety of means. So yes, so this is the Helsinki Hybrid. Now, data centers are industrial buildings that are typically located in suburban parks. There is now a movement by the hyperscalers, Apple, Microsoft, Google, to co-locate these facilities within city centers. Now, when we do that, there's a civic obligation for the building to participate within the fabric of the city. And so what the building looks like starts to matter, where in industrial office parks, it doesn't. And so this particular project is kind of woven through the landscape of Helsinki. Very quickly, this is a great slide to explain. It includes the data center. Let me quickly annotate that. So the data center is here, and it's hot. Now, the heat from the data center is reused to warm the greenhouse, which is a public amenity in Finland, and therefore it is it receives a public, we receive a public subsidy to build the building. Now, the data center is clad with vertical farming. Now, there are three types of vertical farming. There's aeroponics, hydroponics, and aquaponics. We're using aeroponics here. So it's soilless vertical farming. Now, soilless farming, we believe, is the future, because as we remember, this year, ground temperatures in India were exceeding 40 degrees Celsius. And the same is true of the EU, and the same is true here in California. So the idea of saving soil is really crucial to this project. Now, the produce that comes out of the vertical farming is sold at the market below. Now, by doing this, we eliminate scope 3 emissions. So for example, currently in Helsinki in the winter, when you buy produce, they ship it from the Netherlands. So you're paying about $1 per tomato. So this model that we're proposing becomes really significant for the community. So let's continue. This is the site. It's adjacent to the Olympic Stadium. And just the armature that we're working with, we're also computational design experts. It's a parametric skin, which means, all that means is that we can increase or decrease the scale of the project in about 30 minutes. And everything there is compartmentalized into components. So again, the plaza, the parking, the market, the shipping, everything is parametric, so it can be deployed at a multiple of scales. There's the data center, which is hidden, it's clad by the vertical farming and the greenhouse. Now, we're not only are we addressing the SDGs, which I'll talk about just at the end of the presentation, but we're also addressing the EU taxonomy, which is it's complicated, but it's very clear. It's net zero by 2050. So immersion cooling is one of the ways that data centers work, and it's not entirely relevant, the difference between immersion cooling and not immersion cooling. It's just showing different types of data processing. And here you can see the robotic for vertical farming. And then again, as I described in the last slide, the building is organized around temperature. So the data center is hot, the vertical farm is dehumidified, and the greenhouse is humid. And of course, in the winter, Helsinki is cold. So you can begin to see what the building looks like and how it participates within the community. You can see the vertical farming here. Here's the landscape and the parking below. And here we are immersed within the greenhouse. So again, there's a wooden boardwalk, a helical ramp that takes you from the ground floor right up to the roof garden. And also a restaurant. So experiencing the greenhouse really has nothing to do with the fact that there's actually a data center inside. So we have hidden the industrial building. And this is just other views of the ramp as it rises up and the entrance. And of course, we're using, when we talk about scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, of course, we're using local materials. And just there are just a few other things. With the vertical farming, the question becomes, how do you deal with waste? How do you deal with management of plant material? Anaerobic digesters are one way to do that. And then also, although this, it depends which country you're operating in. So for example, in France, it's illegal to use water to cool a data center. So we use heat reuse. And I've already talked about that. So let me, I have some notes, and I want to be very clear about how a project like this, located in the city center, an industrial building, which is clad with public components, we're addressing at least 5 of the 17 SDGs. So we're addressing SDG 2, zero hunger, target 2.4, sustainable food production systems. We are addressing SDG 7, affordable and clean energy, due to the fact that the heat used for the greenhouse is directly extracted from the data center. Additionally, HPC, high performance computing, enabled solutions will lead to a more efficient operation. ODCs, organic data centers, are expected to also have a positive impact on sustainability of industry and cities. And that is addressing SDG number 9 on industry, innovation, and infrastructure. And we're also addressing SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities. And in particular, on SDG 9, target 9.4, which aims to upgrading industries more efficiently. Then finally, we're also clearly addressing SDG 13, which is climate change, where a resource efficient solution, such as an ODC, will have a positive impact on all targets. So that's the conclusion of the presentation. And again, as I said, I will drop it into the WhatsApp group, and I would welcome any questions now.
Thank you, Joseph. This is really, for someone like me who's from medical background, listening to the architect, like, it's very, very fascinating for me. And definitely I want to learn more. I also live in New York for half a year, so I would love to connect, because I think as a layman wanting to use common sense and understand what you're saying, it's what you're saying makes sense to me, but people don't want to invest that kind of money in infrastructure in the beginning, because it seems that when we have to go through this kind of understanding of having an infrastructure, where you are trying to use energy from the data, center. It's very, very fascinating. But to build that kind of infrastructure, how much it will cost in countries like India or any other developing country, I'm just speaking out of my head. I'm sure I want people to really, come and tell me, no, this is not how it works.
Yeah.
But I think the smallest things in our industry that people don't want to be like putting their waste directly into the sea or not following even the basic norms of industrialization, the protecting mechanisms, though the policies are in place. I mean, there are rules and regulations, but nobody wants to implement, nobody wants to follow. But bringing up a system or infrastructure that you just showcased, I'm not sure how many years it will take for developing countries to have that kind of understanding and saying, okay, let us invest in this kind of infrastructure is going to give us long-term, cost-effective, measures on climate change, and we are going to benefit 100 times more than, if we make some cheap infrastructures and then, don't get the real benefits out of it. So I really invite, there are a lot of, stalwarts of business on the forum, and I also see some people smiling. So I want their comments, because it should not be just one person speaking. So I'm expecting Dr. Bhaskar to give some comments. Please unmute yourself and say some words that make more sense to what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Neelamji. Well, of course, you are absolutely making great sense when you are putting all these observations. That these are, I think, these genres are followed in countries which are definitely outside India and mostly European countries, which are so specific and particular about all these spheres. For our environment, for our daily lives and all that. But in India, even if we try to do it, there is some element of distrust, vilification of our effort. So it is very difficult for us to digest all these type of, I should say, superb and splendid effort. And it is not only in India, all the developing countries, because I think their undevelopment is the politics of the day, and that is the route to the politics and political victory. So the perpetuation of non-implementation of such development projects is also a part of their agenda. So it's very difficult to match with those European standards, because Europeans are definitely much, much superior in their concept and in their working with all these things.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it when you make it political. So, you escape all other questions now. That's the easiest thing to do. Whatever we think is not solving, let us make it political. But you are right. You are absolutely right. Because I think there is a capacity, especially a country like India can do wonders.
Yes.
If they decide to do it. But if the politicians don't have the vision,
exactly,
then we are not going to move ahead. And I fully agree with you on that. So still, I think we'll still like to explore and talk more with Joseph and understand how we can have little mini models like that, at least one in India.
exactly.
Why not?
Exactly.
I'm somebody who likes to think, out of box. If I had that kind of money, I would definitely go ahead and do it.
Maybe, if I may,
yes,
Joe, I think, Joseph, I think it's really amazing what you showed. And Prologis, we build data centers, we build them for Apple. So I sent you a note. It would be really good to connect. And maybe Neelam, through Prologis, we're just starting in India. Maybe that's something that we can do.
Really?
So I'd really like to understand more. And
wow.
and also the way I think about it is, the energy transition and the global warming is a global issue. So if we can do more in the developed countries, it just means more for, so that's sort of the way I think about it. And I would definitely like to understand more of how you design what you do, because I don't want to cause an energy issue as I build data centers, and I've been thinking about it.
Yeah. Just let me say two things about our work right at the moment. Half our portfolio is retrofits, decarbonizing buildings, and that includes HVAC and the building envelope. It's not glamorous work, but it's necessary work. And then the other thing, we've been named sustainability partners for Neom City in Saudi Arabia. And so the standards there are extremely high. So we're looking forward to that as well. But yes, Scandinavia is kind of the place for this activity. And then also, I want to just call out Africa. Africa is, all eyes are on Africa right now, and including data centers. And then addressing India, remember, we can retrofit existing building stock to turn it into a data center. So.